You're listening to the Matt the Stat Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Matt the Stat, where we talk about football, baseball, basketball, and everything sports. So today, for my show, I'll be talking to you guys about the Washington Commanders taking on the Dallas Cowboys from Sunday afternoon, and I'll have some analysis and a game recap for you guys all coming up today. But before I get into the show, I hope you guys are enjoying your Friday. And, well, it's about the start of the weekend, but also today it is the start of the World Series between the Dodgers and the Blue Jays, Game 1 in Toronto. I know people are excited about that game, so also make sure after when you watch this video, make sure to check out my video from yesterday for the World Series preview that I gave to you guys yesterday. So make sure after when I get done with this recap of the Commanders and the Cowboys, go watch my preview of the World Series between the Blue Jays and Dodgers. But that being said, getting to today's show, I have the Washington Commanders taking on the Dallas Cowboys. And why am I talking about this game? Well, it's an NFC East divisional rivalry game between the Commanders and Cowboys. It's been a rivalry for decades and years, and I can't wait to get into this game today because this was a matchup that I was looking forward to, and I definitely wanted to give you a recap. So 2 NFL recaps this week for you guys, Commanders, Cowboys. Let's jump right into it, give you a little background on both of these teams. We start with the Washington Commanders. The one thing that has really hurt the Washington Commanders going into this game is injuries. The Washington Commanders, they've been injured. They had a great offseason. They went out and got guys like Laramie Tunzel, Deebo Samuel to go behind Terry McLaurin at receiver. And, big expectations this year for the Washington Commanders, especially with how Jaden Daniels did last year in his rookie season, taking the Washington Commanders to the NFC Championship game against the Philadelphia Eagles. And the Commanders came up short, but huge expectations going into this season. So far, the Commanders, they really haven't lived up to those expectations, and part of that has to do with the amount of injuries that they have had. If you'll just every week, there's been a new guy that has gone down or is out of the lineup for the Washington Commanders. So it just kind of feels like a roller coaster, and you kind of see the ship starting to sink for the Washington Commanders here. And Jaden Daniels, he had that knee injury. He missed the last couple weeks. He came back against the Chargers, looked pretty good against the Chargers. They got a 27-10 win over the Los Angeles Chargers. And then it just kind of felt like things on Monday Night Football against the Chicago Bears at home. Things didn't really go really smoothly. The Commanders looked out of sync, and they ended up losing to the Chicago Bears by the final score of 25-24. And speaking of teams that are up and coming right now, the Chicago Bears, they're playing some great football right now. But the Washington Commanders, injuries, Terry McLaurin's been out. Deebo was out this past week, and the injuries continue to mount up for the Washington Commanders. Now, in terms of the Dallas Cowboys, I've already covered the Dallas Cowboys 2 times on this show. This is now the 3rd time I'll be covering the Dallas Cowboys on this podcast this year. And we talk about the Dallas Cowboys. The defense has been the big topic of conversation with the Dallas Cowboys, an explosive offense. The Dallas Cowboys offensively, they've got weapons everywhere, whether if it's, the quarterback Dak Prescott, Javonte Williams, CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens. It really doesn't matter what the Cowboys have offensively. They have been great offensively, and Dak Prescott is having one of his best seasons probably and likely ever in the NFL. This has been one of his best seasons in the NFL since he came in 2016. So, that being said, Commanders, Cowboys going into this game. And the Cowboys, they would start with the football to begin the game. And the Dallas Cowboys, they would start with a physical run from Javonte Williams, then a Prescott pass to CeeDee Lamb for a first, then a defensive pass interference on the Commanders, and the drive would be capped by a Williams rushing touchdown, and the Cowboys go up 7-0. And, well, the Dallas Cowboys, first drive of the game, they go right down the field, they get in the end zone. The first drive for the Commanders, they end up going 3 and out. And then the Cowboys' next possession, their second possession of the game, it would only last one play because Javonte Williams, he would end up getting tackled in the end zone after a great punt from Tress Way by the Commanders, putting the Cowboys on their own 1-yard line. And Daron Payne comes up with Daron Payne ends up tackling Javonte Williams in the end zone for a safety. So it's now 7-2, and a safety is 2 points. So it's now 7-2 Dallas Cowboys. So the Cowboys, they would have to kick it back to the Commanders. Next drive for the Commanders, they would start with a Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt run, then another run from Merritt for a first, then a play action to Chris Moore for a first, then a penalty on the Cowboys, and it would be capped by a Daniels TD pass to tight end Zach Ertz. They would go for 2. It would not be successful, and it's now 8-7 Washington Commanders. The next drive for the Dallas Cowboys, they would start with a Prescott deep ball to Pickens for a first. And, we talk about the Prescott to Pickens connection going deep down the field. I saw it in person when I was in Oxnard watching the Dallas Cowboys training camp. I saw a couple times when Dak Prescott and George Pickens connected deep down the field on the sideline. Well, in this game, you saw that Dak Prescott, the Washington Commanders were playing man coverage, and Dak Prescott ends up hitting George Pickens, and it was a great over-the-shoulder catch by George Pickens, by the way. And that's one of the toughest catches you can make in football, over the shoulder, having to look back. And not only that, when you're wearing that helmet, it's hard because when you're looking up like this, you really can't see because that helmet kind of, blocks your vision a little bit, and it makes it tough. But George Pickens, great catch. And then after that play, there would be a Williams run. The drive would stall out, and the Cowboys, they would go for a field goal from Mr. Automatic, Brandon Aubrey, and he would make it, and it's now 10-7 Cowboys. Next possession for the Commanders, they would go 3 and out, and then the Cowboys, first play of their next drive, Dak Prescott on a play-action pass would connect with CeeDee Lamb deep down the field, and it would go for a touchdown, and it's now 17-8 Dallas Cowboys. And, of course, the one thing I forgot to mention before the start of the show, CeeDee Lamb returning for the Dallas Cowboys, and it doesn't take that long for Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb to hook up deep down the field, ends up getting in the end zone, and when CeeDee Lamb was running to the end zone, there was no Washington Commander defenders anywhere. So it's 17-8 Dallas Cowboys, and the next drive for the Commanders, they would start with converting on a 3rd and 10 with a Daniels pass to Robbie Chosen for a first, but that would be all. The drive would end up stalling. The Commanders would have to punt, and that would be the end of the first quarter. So 17-8 Dallas Cowboys. A lot of action in the first quarter. We go to the second quarter. The Cowboys, they start with a couple of penalties on the Commanders. Then there would be a holding call on the Cowboys. Then a false start on the Cowboys. So pretty much this whole drive for the Cowboys, a bunch of penalties. Then a screen pass to Lamb for a good game, but the Cowboys would end up having to punt. Now, you started to see in the second quarter the Washington Commanders, they were able to start bringing some pressure, and they were kind of getting Dak a little uncomfortable, and the Commanders did a great job of doing that, getting some pressure on Dak Prescott. The next drive for the Commanders, they would start with a Daniels pass to Jalen Lane for a first, followed by a penalty on the Cowboys, then a Daniels run. The Commanders would go for it on 4th down, and they would not convert. and they would turn it over on downs. So the next Cowboys drive, the Cowboys would start with a holding call on them, then a run from Javonte Williams, a quick pass to Lamb, another holding call on the Cowboys. Then on a 3rd and 12, the Cowboys would convert with a Prescott pass to tight end Jake Ferguson over the middle for a first. The drive would end up stalling. The Cowboys would have to settle for a field goal attempt. And, well, Brandon Aubrey, of course, 61-yard field goal. He makes it, and it's now 20-8 Dallas Cowboys. And Brandon Aubrey has made some history for the Dallas Cowboys. He's the first kicker ever in an NFL season to kick that many 60-yard field goals. And while he's definitely broken a record there. So, Brandon Aubrey, what else can we say? I mean, this guy is just automatic. It doesn't matter where you have to make a field goal for Brandon Aubrey, whether if that's at midfield or even a little past midfield or even, 55-yarder. It really doesn't matter because Brandon Aubrey, he just nails it, and he's been great since coming to the Dallas Cowboys in 2022. So, Brandon Aubrey, great job. I mean, he's been fantastic. He's been, well, not fantastic. He's been sensational for the Dallas Cowboys. But the next drive for the Washington Commanders, they would have a false start to start, and they would end up going 3 and out. They do absolutely nothing, and the Cowboys get the ball back. The next drive, the Cowboys, they start with a Prescott completion to Pickens. Then on a 3rd down, Prescott would find Lamb for a first. The drive would end up stalling. The Cowboys would have to punt. The next drive for the Commanders, they would start with a Daniels pass to McNichols for a first, then a Daniels run for a first, then an offsides on the Cowboys, then a penalty on the Cowboys, then a good run from Jeremy McNichols for a big gain, then a read option keeper by Daniels, and it would be a rushing touchdown for Jaden Daniels. Big score for the Washington Commanders late in the second quarter. It's now 20-15 Dallas Cowboys. So the lead has now been cut down to 5. So the next drive for the Dallas Cowboys. Well, once again, Dak Prescott connecting deep down the field with George Pickens. And, well, what else can we say? It's like, you're thinking the next completion down, the next deep ball completion to George Pickens, you're sitting there going like, okay, how many more are they going to complete down the field? Because, here's the thing. And George Pickens, he has been awesome since coming to the Dallas Cowboys. And he did a great job filling in for CeeDee Lamb when CeeDee Lamb went down with that high ankle sprain after the Chicago Bear game. And I have to tell you, it's just unreal, because it's like you can't play man coverage against George Pickens. If you leave him man to man, that's what's going to happen. So if Dak Prescott sees that, he's going to try to throw the ball down the field to George Pickens. It's going to number 3 if you play man coverage against the Dallas Cowboys and you leave George Pickens one-on-one. He'll burn you. And that's what happened twice. So, after that deep ball completion to George Pickens, there's a big run from Javonte Williams. The drive ended up being capped by a Dak Prescott TD pass to Jake Ferguson. And it's a huge score going into halftime. It is now 27-15 Dallas Cowboys at the half. So, that being said, how do we summarize up the first half? Well, the first half, really the Dallas Cowboys, they came out, they pretty much did whatever they want. Play action, it didn't matter, get the ball out fast, throw the ball down the field to George Pickens, get CeeDee Lamb involved. So it didn't matter, Javonte Williams, there was one really physical run. The very first carry he got in that game, lowers his shoulder and his head goes right into the sternum of Marshawn Lattimore, knocks him over. So, the Dallas Cowboys, they did whatever they want. It didn't matter what the Dallas Cowboys did, whether it was a straight drop back, play action, bootleg, whatever it was, deep ball down the field to CD or George. it just didn't matter. The Dallas Cowboys offense just absolutely humming. And not only that, the Cowboys offense, they've been one of the best offenses in the league. So, I mean, Dallas Cowboys, they showed it in the first half. Now, so far for the Washington Commanders, well, the problem with the Washington Commanders is all the injuries. No Terry McLaurin. Deebo Samuel was a late add to the injury list. He did not play. They do not have Noah Brown. So pretty much everybody that played in this game was not a starter. The Washington Commanders, they had signed Robbie Chosen. They brought him up from the practice squad for this game. They still had the rookie Jalen Lane. They had a veteran guy like Chris Moore. But, of course, the really only veteran receiver was the tight end, Zach Ertz. Jaden Daniels was out there. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt has been an absolute star, or you can call him Bill Krosky-Merritt, and he also goes by Bill. But, Krosky-Merritt, he's been awesome coming out of the University of Arizona just in his rookie season. 7th-round draft pick. I think he would have been a higher-round draft pick if it wasn't for the fact that he only played in one game a year ago with the University of Arizona because of injury. But the Dallas Cowboys defense looked really good for the first time under Matt Eberflus. They did a great job. They were sound defensively. They didn't give up the big explosive plays. They shut down the run game. Krosky-Merritt really wasn't able to get going. Jaden Daniels, not a lot of great coverage down the field. So Jaden Daniels, he was really kind of having to hold on to the ball. He had to take off with it. So for the most part, Dallas Cowboys played a great first half of football, and we saw the Cowboys played some defense. They got some pressure on Jaden Daniels. They made him uncomfortable, and this is the best I've seen the Dallas Cowboys defense all year long. But let's get to the second half now. Second half of the game, the Commanders, they would start with the ball to begin the second half. They'd start with a Daniels pass to Ertz for a first, then a quarterback keeper for a first, then with Daniels rolling to his left, finding Chris Moore for a first, then pressure, then there would be pressure on Daniels, which he would end up fumbling, and the ball would end up being recovered by the Dallas Cowboys. So the next drive for the Dallas Cowboys after the Jaden Daniels fumble, the Cowboys, they'd start with a couple of good runs from Javonte Williams, then a Prescott quick pass to Blue, then on a 3rd and 5, Prescott would find Pickens for a first, then an illegal formation penalty on the Cowboys, then a Prescott run for a first, and the drive would be capped off by a Prescott bootleg going to his right, and he would hit Jake Ferguson for a touchdown, and the Cowboys, they only extend their lead. It's now 34-15. The next drive for the Washington Commanders, they would start with a Marcus Mariota pass to Lane for a first, a good run from Chris Rodriguez, a false start penalty on the Commanders. Then, of course, at this time, it's Marcus Mariota starting because on that last play, Jaden Daniels, he ended up getting hurt. He ended up hurting his hamstring. He never returned to the game. So Marcus Mariota is in there. So just to bring that up real quick, because I just about forgot to mention it. So then after the false start penalty on the Commanders, then Mariota under pressure, he would end up throwing a pick six to Deron Bland. And well, Deron Bland would take that into the end zone. And it's now a 41-15 Dallas Cowboys lead. It's a blowout, and it's just, at this point, it's a runaway for the Dallas Cowboys. And not looking too good at this time for the Washington Commanders. They can't have that pick. Well, ends up getting picked by the one guy that has been really good for the Dallas Cowboys, Deron Bland, and it's 41-15. So the next drive for the Washington Commanders, they would start with a Mariota run for a first. Commanders would go for it on a 4th down and get a defensive a defensive pass interference on the Cowboys, extending the drive. Then a good run from Mariota, and then Rodriguez, he would get in the end zone for a rushing touchdown, which originally it looked like to me on that goal line touchdown, Chris Rodriguez, he came up a little short. It looked like his knee might have touched before he broke the plane, but it ends up being a touchdown. It's now a 41-22 Dallas Cowboys lead. So the Commanders, they do get in the end zone, and that is a score that will make it look respectable. So 41-22 Dallas. The Cowboys' next drive, they would start with a Williams run, then a Commanders' defensive pass interference, then a Prescott quick pass to Turpin for a first, then another good run from Williams. That would end the third quarter. Still the same drive. The Cowboys' drive ended up stalling out to begin the fourth quarter. Brandon Aubrey comes out for another field goal attempt. He makes it. It's now 44-22 Dallas Cowboys. Next drive for the Washington Commanders, they would start with a Marcus Mariota pass to Ertz for a first, and then Mariota with a completion to Robbie Chosen, but the Commanders go for it on 4th and 1, and they do not convert, so they turn the ball over on downs once again. And the Cowboys, they would start with a Prescott completion to Tolbert, then a holding call on the Cowboys. The drive would stall. Cowboys would have to punt. But that was pretty much all the scoring done. The Dallas Cowboys, they go on to win this game by the final score of 44-22. So, Dallas Cowboys, dominant win in this game. And before I get into anything any further, I'd like to go over the stats really quick. Dak Prescott, he completed 21 of his 30 passes for 264 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Javonte Williams, he had 19 carries for 116 yards and 1 touchdown. CeeDee Lamb had 5 receptions for 110 yards and 1 touchdown. George Pickens had 4 receptions for 82 yards. So that was all the stats for the Dallas Cowboys. For the Washington Commanders, Jaden Daniels, he completed 12 of his 22 passes for 156 yards. Marcus Mariota completed 4 of his 10 passes for 63 yards. And then Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, or Bill Krosky-Merritt, had 13 carries for 33 yards. And Jalen Lane had 3 receptions for 60 yards. So, that being said, we talk about the Washington Commanders. Not a great day for the Washington Commanders. They didn't really have a run game in this game. The Cowboys did a great job shutting down Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, and it was just kind of an off day. And to me, to be honest with you, the injuries are hindering the Washington Commanders right now. And you can tell it's definitely hurting them because Jaden Daniels, he didn't really have anybody to throw it to. The Cowboys had great coverage down the field. They were able to rush the passer. They were able to get pressure on Jaden Daniels, make him uncomfortable. And then there were some high throws from Jaden Daniels in this game. Some throws that he usually makes, he didn't make. And it was just a sloppy day for the Washington Washington Commanders. Just about called them, the other name, which I will not say. But the Washington Commanders, really an off day for the Washington Commanders. Let's just say that. Sloppy, wasn't great. Defensively, it's once again the Commanders' defense. It's been a big issue. It was a big issue last year. Once again, it's a big issue this year. And the Washington Commanders, I think they're 26th in the league in terms of explosive plays, which is not very good. So they're almost last in the league in terms of giving up explosive plays. They give up a lot of explosive plays, and you saw that in this game. 1 deep pass touchdown to CeeDee Lamb, 2 deep balls down the field to George Pickens. It just felt like the Cowboys, they did whatever they wanted against the Washington Commanders defense. So the Washington Commanders, I think when this team gets healthy, I think this team will be really good because they didn't have Terry McLaurin, they did not have Deebo Samuel, they did not have Noah Brown, and pretty much they were playing all backups. Robbie Chosen, he's been around in this league for quite some time. He's been around. He's a veteran guy. Chris Moore has been around. But then the rest of them are pretty much rookies. Jalen Lane, he had the best day out of all the receivers. I mean, he had 60 yards receiving. He had the most receiving yards just behind Chris Moore with 59 receiving yards. But other than that, I mean, Zach Ertz ended up being their best weapon. And usually when the Cowboys played man coverage, you kind of see Jaden Daniels kind of look Zach Ertz's way when it was man coverage. But for the most part, rough day for the Washington Commanders. You kind of starting to feel this team. Like I said earlier, the ship is starting to sink a bit for the Washington Commanders. And to me, look, I think if the Washington Commanders can stay healthy, and if they get healthy this season, I think this team will be really good because they got weapons everywhere. They got Terry. He has been practicing this week for the Washington Commanders. Debo was practicing this week for the Washington Commanders. Noah Brown, no, have not seen him out there, not heard anything about him practicing. But once this team gets healthy, and, I really believed in this team going into this season because Jaden Daniels, when he's on, he's phenomenal. Jaden Daniels is phenomenal when he's on. And in this game, it just kind of felt like that there was just no rhythm. The Commanders couldn't get into a rhythm, and it really hurt them in this game. And the defense, whoa. It was talked about during the offseason. Well, it's still a problem. And, the Commanders, they got to fix giving up those big explosive plays because they gave up a lot to the Dallas Cowboys. And not only that, for the Washington Commanders, their next game is Monday night against the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City. So that being said, well, that defense is going to have to play a lot better against the Kansas City Chiefs because we know when Patrick Mahomes is going, the Kansas City Chiefs, they can make some explosive plays down the field with Travis Kelce or Xavier Worthy or Marquise Hollywood Brown. So, and not only that, the Washington Commanders are going to be without Jaden Daniels for that game on Monday night. So Marcus Mariota is starting in that game. So, yikes if you're a Washington Commanders fan. So, if you're a Washington Commanders fan, you're hoping that Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel play on Monday night to give Marcus Mariota some weapons for this game. So that being said, Washington Commanders, like I said, once they get healthy, I think this team will be really good. But the Commanders got to figure something out right now because you can start to feel the ship sink. So they got to figure something out. But on the other side of the spectrum, the Dallas Cowboys. What can we say about the Dallas Cowboys right now? Offensively, that is. Because the Dallas Cowboys, like I said, they did whatever they wanted in this game. It didn't matter what the Dallas Cowboys did. Run the ball with Javonte Williams. Play action, throw the ball down the field to CeeDee Lamb. Or if it was man coverage, just throw a 50-50 ball up to George Pickens. He'll come down with it. And he did it twice. So the Cowboys offense, extremely impressive. And then, Jake Ferguson, he's an awesome tight end for the Dallas Cowboys. He's been great for the Dallas Cowboys as well. So the Cowboys, they got weapons all over the place. And, they're getting some guys back. CeeDee Lamb came back. I know Cooper Beebe, their starting center, has been practicing this week. So that's good for the Dallas Cowboys. And we'll see if he'll play on Sunday afternoon in Denver against the Denver Broncos. And that's not going to be an easy matchup, though, because we know that Broncos defense, they are really damn good. And when you got someone like Patrick Surtain, look out. But overall for the Dallas Cowboys, I really liked what I saw defensively in this game. And this is really the first time I've been able to sit here since I've been talking about the Dallas Cowboys and compliment them defensively. Because really, the first two times on this show I've covered the Cowboys this year, I really can't say that I was impressed with the defense. The opening week game I did between the Cowboys and the Eagles in Philly, I did a recap of that game. And then the last game I did was a Sunday night game against the Green Bay Packers at home for the Dallas Cowboys. So that was the last game that I did. And, well, the Cowboys defense, they gave up 40 points in that game. So this was a better showing from the Dallas Cowboys. Really liked what I saw from the Dallas Cowboys. The one guy that they were missing defensively in this game, there was no Trayvon Diggs for this game. Diggs did not play in this game. So, overall, it's been a disastrous start for the defensive coordinator, Matt Eberflus. And, a lot of Cowboy fans have been calling for his firing and all that. But this was really the first game where it was like, okay, there's a little hope for this Dallas Cowboys team in terms of that defense, because the offense is really good, but the defense has been one of the worst in the league. And the Cowboys, they looked better. You saw one of their newest pass rushers, Jadeveon Clowney, disrupt some plays. So he looked really good. They were able to get pressure, force Jaden Daniels to, make him a bit uncomfortable. And the Cowboys did a great job in this game, and they look good on both sides of the ball in this game. And yes, a lot of people are going to sit here and say, well, the Washington Commanders were injured and blah, 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 blah. But you have to have some hope if you're a Cowboys fan, because this is a start. You pretty much shut down Jaden Daniels. He really wasn't able to do much with the ball. They were trying to run the ball, which, kind of expected in this game with how many injuries the Commanders have. They were going to try to run the ball with Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. They pretty much forced the Commanders to throw the ball, and, the Commanders didn't really even have a run game in this game. So the Cowboys did a great job of forcing the Commanders to have to throw the ball down the field, and they made it hard on the Commanders. They made every yard, every blade of grass very difficult. The Commanders had to work for it to get down the field. Really nothing explosive down the field. There was a couple of plays that were explosive plays for the Commanders, but not a whole lot. So the Cowboys defense, they did a great job. So that being said, that's all the time that I have for you guys today. But here's the thing. Before I end the show, and I forgot to mention this, is that the Dallas Cowboys, they got a tough matchup at Denver. That's going to be a tough one for them. And, we know what that Broncos defense can do. They've been one of the best defenses in the league, likely top 2, top 3 in the league right now in terms of defense for the Denver Broncos. You saw the Denver Broncos get that big win against the New York Giants last weekend. So, that come from behind win against the New York Giants. So, that's big right there. So that being said, the Dallas Cowboys, this will definitely be a tougher challenge for the offense, and it'll also be a tough challenge for their defense. We'll see on Sunday afternoon how it goes. And as far as the Commanders go, they are at Kansas City Monday night. And if I'm a Commanders fan, I'm praying right now, because, you're not going to have your starting quarterback Monday night. We don't know if Terry and Debo are going to play on Monday night. So the Commanders, they got to get something figured out defensively as well. And with all the injuries on the offensive side of the ball, they got to find a way to move the ball down the field. So that being said, like I said, that's all the time that I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed my show today. And I hope I was able to give you guys somewhat of a break from whatever daily life you guys are dealing with, whether if you're stressed from work or whatever. Hopefully I gave you guys some stress relief for a little bit of time here. So I'm so happy to do that for you guys, because, I love talking sports. So that being said, you're listening to the Matt the Stat Sports Podcast. I am your host, Matt the Stat. Make sure to hit that subscribe button on my YouTube channel. Also give me a follow on Spotify, by the way, as well. But I hope you guys, and that being said, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend and Friday.